4 ways to elevate your oyster experience. Today we're going to show you 4 simple ways to enhance your oyster consumption experience, moving from all the way from West Coast oysters to East Coast oysters, finishing off with the super rare oysters. But first, tell us about our oysters.
This is a quintessential experience of the Pacific Northwest coast. The most beautiful thing about oysters and any sort of bivalves and shellfish are they are restorative species. We don't need to put any input into them other than the fact that they're filtering through our clean waters of the Pacific Northwest.
So what's the main difference in taste between the East Coast and the West Coast?
There's no generalization, but of course, like there's the standards. Like the West Coast is gonna be a little bit more briny and saltier, but then the East Coast, for this example, is gonna be actually sweeter of all things.
Okay, let's make some oysters. First, we're gonna start with shucking our Sunseeker, which is a premium West Coast oyster.
Usually I like to get about a 30, 45 degree angle here. So I'd like to roll up a cloth, kitchen towel. Then typically fold this over this way just for safety. You see a lot of people hold the oyster this way. There's a huge chance you're gonna stab your thumb. Let's not do that today.
Okay.
So we want to hold it like this.
Yeah.
Find the little area in between where the knife is gonna fit. And just naturally sort of just push in and twist, but you don't need to push hard. It's all about twisting the wrist this way like you're riding a motorcycle. Keep pushing there until you find the right angle. For me, I found the angle here.
Yep.
So now it's just gonna sit there. So now I know if I just twist a bit, I can pop it open.
Right.
And that's as simple as it
Why
is.
does it sound so weird?
So now I have it open. You can see here. Now it's open.
Yeah.
Twist it enough so that you have some leverage here. There's gonna be a little bit of an adductor muscle here. So your knife, you wanna slide the knife slight angled up so that you are keeping as much meat as possible.
Yeah.
And you're gonna scrape against the shell.
Okay.
The oyster is shucked.
Yeah.
We need to release the bottom of the adductor muscle, which is this little muscle that is right there. You see that?
There, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You want to release it. Again, same as close to the shell as possible to preserve as much meat. So we don't really want to rinse it. We want to keep all this oyster liquor inside. This is the flavor.
Yeah.
This is the essence. This is the freshness. So the second part, when you shuck an oyster, you want to make sure you smell it. You want to make sure that it smells like fresh ocean. There's nothing funky about it, but it smells pure.
What does unfresh ocean smell like?
You'll know.
There's only one type of ocean, right?
Because we want to preserve the liquor inside the oyster. We want to disturb it as little as possible, but we want to make sure that there is no shell in there.
Okay.
Obviously, the enjoyable experience is not grit. Make sure there's just no remnants and you just scoop it out. Just pick it out.
Now it's time to build our first oyster, the Sunseeker oyster, and this is going to be called the Acre oyster.
First thing first, we're gonna take some locally made honey wine, which is called mead. This is done with wild berries from BC as well, and infused with a little bit of spruce tip. After that, we have a little pile of locally foraged kelp stipes. So these been pickled. We're just gonna, for texture-wise, we're just gonna dice them up a little bit, and they're gonna go right into the oyster.
What is this kelp going to taste like on the oyster in texture?
So this is like a little emulation of what you would say is a mignonette. The
Okay.
typical sauce you would put with oysters, like vinegar, sugar, shallots. But instead of doing that way, we decided to use the honey wine. We decided to pickle these instead, almost like the shallot.
Okay.
Second step here, made some kelp pearls with the actual blade from the kelp made. And actually the fun thing is we foraged it. And I'll bring you there one day.
Now that we topped the oysters, it's time to smoke them. How is this working?
A little smoking gun. So this is just drawing in air. We're using oak right now, but this is just drawing some.
And the oak is in this machine.
The oak is in the machine. Little chips of oak, so I can show you here. Right. Would
Okay.
be nice if we could get some cedar
Yeah.
as
Ooh,
well,
I smell
but
this. Wow, this is nice.
yeah.
Now that's smoking, we're gonna move on to our next oyster, which is the Sweet Select. Wow, this color is really interesting. It's very like,
Yeah, more opaque. So this is a East Coast species. Again, sweet select PEI. Of all things, this one actually is considered a lot sweeter. These ones, they sink to the bottom of the ocean or lower down because it does freeze over where they grow.
Now we're gonna build this oyster into the cask oyster.
Okay, so this is an oyster of an example we would do in our Japanese focus restaurant. We're gonna do a little shio koji cream with a touch of ginger. Koji is like a little fermented rice.
Okay.
And then shio's is like white. We use white soy for this one. So white soy, but shio. And then just a little bit of ginger juice. So this will be like the sauce for the oyster.
Oh, this is very interesting. Is this gonna give it a creamy taste?
It'll give it an even creamier taste for something that's already pretty sweet.
Wow.
And then we're gonna top it off with a few different types of tobiko and different fish eggs. We're gonna put a little bit of local red uni first.
Okay.
Wasabi tobiko.
Oh, you flavored the fish eggs.
Oh, there's people who do it locally for us, so it's really beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, next we're gonna top off the oysters with wasabi tobiko and then some yuzu tobiko. Yeah.
When it's like this, do you really taste both the tobiko flavors?
You do, because like the wasabi is actually pretty strong, but then the yuzu is actually just a nice subtle balance that cuts into it, so you're actually not being distracted by too much of that.
Interesting.
And then second last step, we're gonna put a little bit of shiso oil, again just for extra flavor. Finish off with locally grown viola flower petals.
Next we have the Fanny Bay oyster, and we're gonna make this into the Bruno oyster.
So this is an andouille sausage remoulade. It's almost like tartar sauce, but we put andouille, like an Italian andouille sausage paste inside. And now we're gonna move it onto our binchotan charcoal. Yeah. So you can torch it and have fun. So just keep it centered on where you put the sauce.
Okay.
How long? Good.
All right, now that this is done smoking, we're gonna take off the lid. Ooh, you're gonna see all this come out. Blow it that way into your face because you like the smoky clothing. It's like when you just finished going to the club. We'll take our oysters, place them over here, and then we'll just top them with a little bit of floral to match our wild berry mead. And we're gonna top it off with just a little bit more of that sauce. Now it's time for our last oyster, which is the Olympia, and this is the ultra premium oyster. You'll see that we just got it fresh from our back ocean. There's still a little bit of kelp on it. So what's so special about this oyster?
What is beautiful about this oyster is actually this is the only native species to all the Pacific Northwest coast. You can see how small it is, but it packs a huge punch of flavor. Almost like very earthy, it feels like mushroomy almost.
Mushroom?
Yeah,
Oyster?
You'll try it. Yeah, you'll try
okay.
it. And again, the fun thing is, you think, oh, bigger the oyster, more premium, or bigger the oyster, more worth. But this is super hard to get. It's only certain periods of time. It's gonna start spawning soon, so we can't get them anymore.
Okay.
How long do you think the other oysters take to grow typically?
Like
that we shucked earlier?
1 to 2 years.
Yeah, roughly. This is 5 years.
5 years. Wow.
So we really respect this thing.
So this, we're gonna leave it as is because this is the ultimate oyster and you can't make it any better. Now that we're done our oysters, it's time to try them and review them. Starting from our most pure flavors, moving on to our heavier flavors. So our first oyster is gonna be the Olympia, and we're just gonna eat that straight up.
Yep.
So this is our Sunseeker oyster, but first let's smell it. What does it smell like? Oh, smoky.
Yeah.
Oh.
So like this one, when you have it, I wouldn't say like take the biggest, like taste a little bit first before
Right.
the oyster goes in there because of the smokiness.
Right.
The meat is like, and I don't want you to be overwhelmed by all those flavors.
Yeah,
So
I
take
can
a little
actually
bit easier.
smell a mix of the smoke and the meat, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I thought the smoke would kind of overpower it. Whoa, what the? This is so good. What the? I can taste the meat, I can taste the smokiness, and like the textures of the kelp. This is good. Next is our Japanese-inspired cask oyster. You'll see this is just filled to the brim, and this is probably gonna be like super creamy, right?
It'll be creamy
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. All right. Let's go
Cheers.
for it. Cheers.
The sweetness from like the East Coast oyster, the specific East Coast oyster, is adding to like the shio koji cream with a hint of ginger.
Wow, this is actually such a good combination flavor. You can taste all the components, which I'm so surprised when we plated it with that many things. Lastly is our take on the motoyaki oyster. All right, let's go for it. You can already smell it.
Smoky from the torching,
Yep.
right? the sausage in there.
Yeah.
So.
This tastes like an oyster you get at a festival.
What kind
Right?
of festival?
I don't know. It's just like some sort of saucy festival.
Okay, perfect.
That was 4 ways to elevate your oyster experience. So next time you want to eat oysters, have them the fun way.